You must be Stanley. I'm Blanche.
Oh, you're still sister.
Yes.
Even if you're not an actor, you've probably heard of method acting. That's thanks to Marlon Brando. No, the star did not invent the technique, but he helped popularize it with his astonishing performance in the 1951 classic, A Streetcar Named Desire. Brando, who played Stanley Kowalski in both the Broadway play and the film adaptation of Tennessee Williams' masterpiece, made history with this role. The actor found his way into the mind of the brute husband, torturing Blanche and adding believability to the part rarely seen before in film. In this video, we'll break down Marlon Brando's preparation to become Stanley Kowalski. We'll see how the star revolutionized acting in the 20th century and inspired icons like Robert De Niro, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Dustin Hoffman. Stick around to see how Marlon Brando nailed this classic antihero. If you're not familiar, the method's primary focus is to get an actor into the character's mind on a deeper level to reach a more sincere interpretation. Built on Stanislavski's system, it had a significant collaboration between Lee Strasberg, Stanford Meisner, and Stella Adler, who was one of Marlon Brando's acting mentors. Brando was first cast as Stanley Kowalski in the 1947 Broadway play. Although he wasn't the first choice for the part, he glamored both director Elia Kazan and author Tennessee Williams with his honest performance. History says that Williams was struck by Brando immediately. He was just about the best-looking young man I've ever seen, Williams said. That night, Marlon read the role for Tennessee, who could see, moments after Brando started talking, that they had found their Stanley. Soon, all of America would see what Williams saw in Marlon Brando, and would embrace both him and the strange new kind of acting he embodied. Part of what made Brando so right for the role was his brutally honest, charming persona, which gave the anti-hero depth and confused the audience with whom they should identify. During the time the play ran, disagreements between Brando and his castmates were tremendous, with lead actress Jessica Tandy being furious that people would side with the evil man Brando played, instead of her version of Blanche, the victim. But mostly, Brando brought to the stage a new way of acting, experiencing a character rather than representing them. No more performative speeches and well-mannered composure. His goal was to become Stanley with everything that entailed from greasy shirts to violent outbursts, like in the famous scene where Stanley yells Stella after the wife escapes to a neighbor's apartment.
Hey, Stella!
Brando's character goes out in the rain after having hit his wife. He's half-dressed, half-drunk, and 100% distressed. A mix of emotions permeates Stanley. Anger, regret, fear. It's a combination of feelings that Brando perfectly captured with his facial expressions, hands, and tone of his voice. The audience can see his pain, relate to his anguish, and even empathize with him, a perfect example of a realistic and nuanced performance made possible with method acting. And it was this realism that rendered Marlon Brando so much recognition as an upcoming talent. Hollywood was used to classically trained actors. Names like Cary Grant and Laurence Olivier were big in Golden Age. However, the subtle, noticeable modification made a big impression on the public and the critics. A 1950 Variety review somewhat tersely concluded, Brando, a newcomer from Broadway stage, where he starred in Streetcar Named Desire, plays his role realistically, often without sympathy, but certainly with a feeling for the part. He is a new type of leading man, and as such must be accepted. But too much realism also confused people. Times were different, and everything was new with Brando's way of giving life to a character. In 2008, Claudia Roth-Pierpoint wrote in The New Yorker, "Yet, as a result of the uncanny life he put into the slouching, scratching, sweating performance, his tabloid antics, and probably some public confusion about the much-touted method, did it mean an actor was just playing himself? He was widely described as what he resentfully called a blue-jeaned slobbermouth and dubbed the Neanderthal man. For Brando, all acting is real, and everyone is an actor all the time. Here's what the star, who always unwelcomed compliments on his acting skills, said about everyday acting.
I think that we couldn't survive a second if we weren't able to act. Acting is a survival mechanism. It's a social unguent, and it's a lubricant. And we act to save our lives, actually, every day.
Marlon Brando never hid or disguised his ambivalence towards his profession, often remarking on the hardships of playing a tough character like Stanley. But for him, and his way of becoming a character, a play is much more complex than film.
Much tougher than the movies because you have to do it every night. You have to find that emotion. You have to upset yourself. In a motion picture, you come in and you save it for the close-up, crank up for that, and then that fly.
Upsetting yourself to get into character is a fascinating concept deeply rooted in the method. But physical transformations are also part of the process, and it was also new to the landscape. It's hard to believe that before Streetcar Named Desire, Marlon Brando was not known for having a fit physique. In the movie, the actor appears so comfortable with his body and sexual prowess that one would imagine he was precisely like that in real life, but the actor actually had to undergo a fitness regimen transformation to build muscle and play Stanley. Brando began a daily workout routine at a local gym, aiming to build up his chest and biceps. The transformation was such that it impressed the writer-actor Truman Capote, who famously said, "It was as if a stranger's head had been attached to the brawny body, as in certain counterfeit photographs." Stanley Kowalski's body was an essential quality of the blue-collared vet, but at the time, the production couldn't find fitted t-shirts that would highlight his attributes, so they had his regular fit apparel washed several times to shrink and had them stitched up on the back to look tighter. Until today, Marlon Brando is considered the best male actor of all time, perhaps because of the change he brought to acting in movies, perhaps because of his erratic answers and questionable behavior in interviews, but most likely because of his outstanding acting skills.
You can't act unless you are what you are and who you are.
Marlon Brando knew how to embody a character. He was a master at adding layers to their personality and bringing realism to fiction. His acting skills and preparation changed the landscape and inspired an entire new generation of stars like De Niro, Hoffman, and Day-Lewis. His list of credits might not be as long as some fans hoped, but he made a memorable impression in each movie he was in. Do you think method acting is the best technique available to actors? Let us know in the comments below.